Cisco Easy Virtual Networking, or EVN, made easy. When I first saw this concept, my mind immediately went, oh no, they've done it again. I thought they were taking Easy VPN. This is actually a topic I remember teaching 15 years ago when Cisco created it to a Cisco security class. It's essentially a VPN configuration you put on a router, which is just brutal. And I still remember when I was teaching, and it was a classroom environment, I said, you know what? Cisco called this Easy VPN because you might really think it's hard until you see the title and be like, oh, never mind, it's easy. So I thought when I saw Easy Virtual Networking, I like, oh no, they've done it again. Truth be told, EVN is actually a lot easier than the old Easy VPN, not to be confused with the two topics. In this nugget, we're going to unpack it and see what it's all about. So what is Cisco EVN? EVN is a way of providing complete network isolation for specific groups within the shared network infrastructure. So take a look at this picture. It's a typical collapsed core design. I've got these green clients right here, which are isolated by EVN to only access their green servers. And I've got the red clients right here, which are isolated to only access their red servers. But if they're in the same shared network infrastructure, you don't have to go buy separate switches, separate internet connections, routers, firewall, and all that. They can all access the internet the same way, right? That's what EVN's all about. I can almost feel you thinking, you're looking at this just like I did when I first saw EVN. You're like, Jeremy, isn't that what VLANs do? And I'm like, yeah, actually it is. As a matter of fact, I even reused this topology from my VLANs when I talk about VLAN. You're like, okay, that helps, right? So why do we have EVN? Well, think with me. What's the story with VLANs? Well, with VLANs, you got to set up separate subnets, right? You go in and you set up VLAN tags, trunks, and isolation on the trunks, and then you go into the layer 3 switches, and you got to set up the routed interfaces for the VLAN, some HSRP action maybe going on between them. You've got ACLs, one of the key things, access control lists, separating them and making sure that the green people can't access the red people, which are prone to human error and things like that. So VLANs and layer 2 separations by today's modern security evolving standards is not considered enough. People want complete network isolation, meaning when I say complete, they don't even share the same routing table, right? They have, you could actually with EVN go in there and say, okay, well, the red, we'll call it VLAN. The red VLAN is 10.1.1.0/24. And you know what? The green VLAN is also 10.1.1.0/24. That's how separate it is you could duplicate subnets within there, and that's okay. And can I just give you my gut feel on this? This topic puts the exclamation point on what I've been feeling for a couple years now. It's becoming more automated. Meaning, we are moving into a next generation of network equipment where human error is no longer an option. People want, I don't want to pay for a complete network infrastructure, but I want to make sure that I'm secure from these attacks coming in, which, I just encountered a client of mine who got hit with ransomware, this crypto locker. Oh my word, is that thing nasty. To where it encrypts every single file they have, says send us $10,000 to get the de-encryption key or we'll delete it all in X numbers. I was like, good grief, what's this world coming to? So we're getting into this next era of security attacks and isolation, and people are saying, you know what, I want security at a whole new level. That's what EVN is all about. It's a brainless, mindless way of applying what's known as VRF. So you might say, well, I thought you said no VRF in VRF Lite there. What is VRF? VRF stands for Virtual Router Forwarding Instances. You might have heard of server virtualization, right? Almost everybody has, where you can take a physical server, install VMware ESX or Hyper-V on there, and you actually break that things up into all kinds of virtual machines. I've got my Exchange server, my Active Directory domain controller, a management workstation. They all run from the same server because you virtualize that one box into many, right? Well, VRF is a virtualization for your router. You actually create these VRF instances that say, okay, I've got instance, we'll just say 10, which is now completely isolated. You can assign its own IP addresses and its own routing protocols, its own routing tables. That's what I'm talking about, where you can have these duplicated subnets because they're actually in different VRF instances. Matter of fact, I used to teach classes in the classroom environment all the time where I would have a single set of routers in the middle of the room, and I'd have all these student pods with students sitting sitting at tables, and they would actually be following the same lab guide, and every single one of these student pods would have exactly the same labs, exactly the same subnets, exactly the same WAN interfaces, exactly, same. How is it possible even though they connect to a common core? Well, that was because that common core was running VRF, which ran separate instances, essentially separate virtual routers connecting to each one of those, isolating them completely from each other. So what is EVN? EVN is an automated method of doing VRF and VRF Lite. Why? Because VRF Lite is hairy. It's just a big, woolly, nasty configuration with a lot of commands that is prone to, I mean, it's the same argument I was talking before. What's the problem with VLANs? VLANs are prone to human error. There's sabotage attacks we can use on the VLAN trunks and tags and double tags and all that kind of stuff to be able to circumvent layer 2 isolation. So it's just yet another level of security. Now, you might say, well, how did BGP get into this mix? Well, you can actually do network isolation if you want to roll out an MPLS network with BGP using different like community tags essentially to isolate. I mean, these are all ways of isolating your network, right? Cisco's goal with EVN. Matter of fact, if you ever want to, just Google YouTube for EVN. Cisco created a little video where they created this little, like the Staples easy button. They have the Cisco easy button, and the guy there, he's the guy who talks really fast. He might even be faster than me. Nobody's faster than me on talking. But anyway, he talks and it's just constantly this image of this Cisco easy button keeps coming up there, marketing you to death with how easy EVN is all about. So this is a higher end switch feature. So Catalyst 4000, 6000 series, also the ASR router is capable of doing this. And I was saying the reality, essentially what a lot of the marketing kind of hides behind the scene, is this is really an automation tool for VRF Lite. So how does EVN really work behind all the easy buttons and marketing that you will see out there? Cisco EVN puts a friendly face on VRF Lite. Really, VRF Lite is the configuration or the engine behind EVN. This is exactly like something called Auto QoS. As a matter of fact, when I first saw Auto QoS, I was like, it freaks me out. Because what you would do is you would actually go, if you get into voice over IP, you go into a router, you go into the fast Ethernet 0/0 interface and configure the bandwidth and all this kind of stuff correctly. Then you type in one command, Auto QoS. I don't know if any of you have ever done that command, but your router will actually hang. You ever see that where you press enter on the prompt and it just kind of hangs there? And you're like, oh my word, I just crashed my router. And you start freaking out, and then the prompt comes back and you're like, hyperventilating. All of a sudden, all these status messages are like, blah, 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 blah. It just starts shooting full of status messages on your screen because all Auto QoS is a batch file. That just came to me from my old DOS days. It's like an automated script that just generates configuration based on the bandwidth, the encapsulation, whatever you've typed in under that interface. It kind of does a quick analysis of your interface based on the commands you've typed in and says, okay, well, based on this, Cisco best practice for auto quality of service that prioritizes voice and video and database and all this kind of stuff will generate. And you actually type in this one command and then go and do a show run. Right? And you'll see it generated like 50 commands in your configuration. You're like, breathe, at least for me. I hate anything auto because I'm like, what did it do? What did it do? And what I started doing, because I still, in production, would never type that command because it scares me too much, I would go to a lab router. And I would simulate exactly what my environment looked like in the lab, same encapsulation, same bandwidth. And then I would type this in the lab, go back into a show run, and take these commands out and type them into the real router one by one by one by one. That's what Auto QoS was about. And I don't want to digress too long in Auto QoS, but that really emphasizes exactly what EVN is. This is a VRF Lite configuration of a trunk port on a router. Now remember, VRF, virtual router forwarding instances, allows you to essentially duplicate. You might be thinking, oh, you've got a typo there, Jeremy. You're using the same IP address on all of these. Actually, I'm not typoing. That's the power of VRF. You use VLAN tags and VRF forwarding instances to go in and isolate these things. Essentially, when this thing receives things tagged with VLAN 51, it goes, oh, okay, you are really accessing or moving into the VRF forwarding instance group 1. It uses 802.1q tags, right? And so group 1 has this configuration, which could be the same. It could be totally different than the other VRF instances running on that router. Matter of fact, with VRF, you can even go into the sub mode. You can access, it's from privilege mode. You type in, it's like hang on. It's routing context. So you actually can go into privilege mode of that router and type in routing context VRF group 1, if you will. And it will actually take you into sub mode to where now you can type in show IP route, ping, trace route, configure. Essentially, you go into this virtual router mode that allows you to do everything with group 1. And you can bail out of that and go into routing context VRF group 2 and then configure all of the setting there. Again, it's just like server virtualization. You're moving between virtual instances of your router, right? So this is just a partial configuration of what VRF Lite looks like. This is the EVN version. So we go into global configuration mode and type in VRF definition group 1 VNet tag 51. This is totally got marketing written all over it, because when you read about it, they're like, ooh, the secret sauce of EVN is the VNet tag. And really all this is an 802.1q VLAN tag that they're just saying, oh, well, look, that's what we use to identify the different VRF stuff. Again, I don't, anytime I see marketing just, be like, look, we have new things. I'm like, yeah, right. I don't mean to be down on marketing. I love marketing, and we'd never buy anything if it weren't for marketing. But nonetheless, VNet tags is just a VLAN tag, but that's the quote unquote secret sauce of this. But here's the funny thing. Let me finish my statement. You go under interface GI1/1. You say, okay, this is a VNet trunk. Again, marketing. It's essentially saying this is going to be an interface that does all this stuff. You then type in, here's the IP address, and for example, we'll just say, oh, PIM sparse mode to allow multicast traffic to travel between this. What it does is literally, just like AutoQoS, generates all this stuff, but it doesn't hang your router. And if you do a show run, they do a good job of hiding it. As a matter of fact, you actually have to type in show, it's something like show derived configuration, and what you'll see is it actually spits out all of these commands to there. So I'm not, hear me out. I'm not here to be like, oh, EVN is a scam, because I kind of feel that way as I'm talking about it. But that's really all EVN is it's a way for you to roll out network isolation brainlessly. You don't have to figure out access control lists and all this kind of stuff. And there is more to EVN. You can say, well, I need to tag common routes to jump in here. I just wanted to tell you what it was all about so that you can be prepared for essentially the what is question if you are into the Cisco route exam. But that's really all it is an automated method of deploying VRF Lite. I hope this has been informative for you, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.